G'day everybody, Wong here. Today's video is going to be discussing different shooter terminology that you might see in BattleBit, or just shooters in general really. I made this video because I think that there are a lot of people who want to join the discussion in the FPS space, but you might be new or alternatively you've not experienced team play at a high level. So if you are either of those things, this video is for you. The first concept I want to introduce is the word peeking and the word swinging. In its simplest form, it's just a moment when you or somebody else is leaving cover. Now the reason this is so vague is because peeking can be used to do like so many different things. For example, a wide swing or a wide peek is when someone walks out of cover but at a very far distance. In BattleBit, you generally try to avoid going wide because leaving your cover that much opens you up to a large amount of potential threats, but you might want to pair this with a teammate doing a regular peek so now you both have room to shoot one enemy. But honestly, if you could both do just a regular peek on the same angle, it would be better for you. This example here is something people call high-lying, where someone's crouched down low and someone's directly above them, so both of your guns can be pointing at the same thing. This is a real life thing, but I honestly don't know enough about real life high-lying to give any info, so I'm not going to. I just know about it in games. So another form of peeking is what's called the info peek. This is a personal favorite of mine. You'll hear me commenting do an info swing in other games because we're trying to get info on something. And so anyways, an info peek is a form of peeking used to gain any desired information. The different types of information you might desire will be discussed later, but for right now, I'll just explain the basics to an info peek. This type of peek is generally executed at really high speeds and in a manner that makes you really hard to hit by the enemy. As hard to hit as possible, really. In BattleBit, it can be as simple as doing something like this, or even something like this. The faster you can do this while still retaining information, the better. A quick general note on shooter games is the person who is peeking generally has the advantage. I go into this deeper in a different video, so if you want to know exactly why you have an advantage when you're peeking, check it out here. I don't want to explain it right now because I've already explained it before and it's a bit of a lengthy explanation, but all the high level players do it. If you can be peeking an enemy, you should be peeking. You don't want them to peek you. Anyways, moving on. The next concept I want to introduce is holding angles. This is the act of generally just being still and holding another piece of cover, or better yet, holding the area that is next to the piece of cover. Holding angles can be broken down into many different types of holds, the most important of which is passive or aggressive angles. This is an example of an aggressive angle, one which sees all the way down this hallway, and this is a passive angle that lets the enemies come right up to the door. The aggressive angle is more dangerous, but it makes a fight occur sooner. Now, if you're holding an angle like this, you are generally at high risk of being peeked, which in turn means a high risk of dying. Now, an aggressive angle can also look like this. This is called a pixel peek. Generally, you don't want to shoot enemies through this little sliver. Instead, you want to wait to see an enemy in the sliver and then use this as a tell to then peek, giving you the advantage. Now, aggressive angles will yield more kills and things like that, but the high risk means that if you don't get the kill, the fight ends quickly. But you might get the kill, so, it's up to you really, but honestly, I highly recommend using aggressive angles as least as possible. Generally use an aggressive angle when you're protecting someone who's being revived or something like that, where you need to be literally standing in between the enemy and something is when you use an aggressive angle. A passive angle differs quite heavily to an aggressive angle in the advantage that it gives. Generally, a passive angle is not very strong for getting kills, but it is really good for wasting time, because a passive angle means that the gap that the enemies have to cross to be able to shoot you is very high, and that means that it'll take a lot of time to shoot you. But what about stopping enemies from rushing? If they rush, then me holding a passive angle would suck, because the time wouldn't matter, and then they'd just, rush and kill me. So what you can do is there's a trick where you first hold an aggressive pixel angle with just the express interest of just hitting one shot or scaring the enemies, then you can pivot into a passive angle, making the enemies then slowly clear all the ground up to you. Passive angles are more useful in game modes that are objective based, like Counter-Strike, Rainbow Six, Valorant, BattleBit's 4v4. Like, let's say you have a bomb planted in one of these game modes, the defenders need to defuse the bomb, and of course when they need to defuse a bomb, they have limited time. Passive play can be really, really good. You can wait for the defenders to start defusing, and then bam, all of you guys who are holding passive angles now all of a sudden peek the bomb. That's a really good way of using passive angles. Another way playing passively can be super useful is with the off angle. This is an angle that can be described as the element of surprise. This is, in my opinion, can range from just proning before an enemy rounds the corner, or even standing on a random object to throw off head high, but at its best, it's an angle that can see an enemy if they're in a position where they will be clearing other angles. Like, if multiple angles are looking at one spot, it is good to choose one of them, the least expected one. So when the the enemy won't be looking at you, they'll have to be looking somewhere else to clear something. You appear from your off angle. An example here is a clip of me like slowly clearing a street, and then my girlfriend is sitting in an off angle, which aims right at the point where if I would turn around to clear my front, here's where she'd shoot me. Here it is from a top view. Generally, if someone were to clear an off angle, they would expose themselves to so much open ground. Like right here, you can see the line of my girlfriend's aim. If I were to turn around right there, I'd be exposing myself to all the way down the road, which I generally wouldn't do. This can be used as a solo player to get the jump on a bunch of teams passing through an area, or in a team setting, you can have a player in an off angle and everybody else sitting in passive angles, and then when the off angle player takes a shot, all the passive team members suddenly jump out and shoot at that location as well. Really, really good. It's literally just like an ambush, you know what I mean? And an off angle can be a tell for an ambush tactic. The next concept I'm going to cover for this video are ones that fans of the channel will probably recognize, and that is passive aim versus mechanical aim. Mechanical aim is how good you are at making enemies on your screen stay in the middle of your screen. This is when you do things like flicks or tracking. Mechanical aim is something that a lot of players think is the best skill to learn, but in my honest opinion, a lot of lower skill players overstate the importance of mechanical aim. However, passive aim is something that I think all high level players try to get right. This is where your aim is sitting before an enemy is on your screen. This is stuff like aiming head height, aiming at particular angles through the wall, and aiming at your enemies through the wall. Now, a couple of these things I mentioned require you to 1. Know an enemy's position or movements, or 2. Have an exact picture of how the map looks in your head. Both of these things can fall under info, and if we remember back to the info peak, the concept of aiming enemies through the wall makes more sense, because you can do an info peek to make your picture of your map more clear in your head, and also to make the enemy's position more known. When you go back behind cover, you use your passive aim to do what's called pre-aiming, and aim at the enemy through the wall, shoot as they're appearing on your screen. Or alternatively, even shoot before they appear. You call this pre-firing. I cannot overstate how useful doing this is. I actually personally use this all the time in BattleBit, like literally kinda constantly. Like you'll see me on a rooftop proning up and down a fair bit. That's literally just another version of me doing this. I peek, whilst I'm shooting, I'm collecting information about other things, so when I prone to reload, I can then pre-aim when getting back up. That's actually a huge part about making a position really, really strong. Alrighty, so that section was pretty info heavy and it was a lot of conceptual stuff, whereas I want to just sort of fire off some quick fire lingo that you can have in shooters. Like for instance, when someone says, oh I hit this guy, he's tagged, and then they'll say a number, they might say, oh he's tagged 30. Tagged means damaged, and 30 is the amount you did. Now you might say, oh I halved him, or in games with armor, like BattleBit you wouldn't do this as much, but in Apex you do this, you'd go, I cracked this person. It means that you broke their armor. You might sometimes hear people say, oh he's one tap, or just he's one. That of course means that the enemy can only take one more shot before they die. Alrighty, so here's one that I don't hear other people use a lot, but I personally use it when I'm in a team sitting a fair bit, and that is sometimes when I know the enemies are playing passively, or I read that they're playing passively, I go to my team, everybody play through and play really aggressive. And this means that, okay, they're playing passive and trying to waste our time, so let's just not waste our time and let's ignore a bunch of small angles and actually play really aggressive and go further than we need to and overextend a bit. And so that's like, oh, the enemies are trying to play passive and wait for us to do a particular thing. Let's not do the particular thing. Let's kill them and let's just go aggressive. It's a bit high risk and it requires you to have a good read, but every now and again this can be really handy. If you hear someone play through, that's how you know you gotta play really, really aggressive as a team. Alrighty, so this will be the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that even experienced players, I hope you guys found something in here you haven't heard of before. Maybe the playing through thing if you watched the whole video, but yeah, I don't know. I hope a lot of the last part of the video is more to help new players, like do real quick lingo, but I'm definitely going to do another part of this because there's tons of stuff that I can already think of that I've forgotten that I could just put in the next one. But if you're still watching, please leave a comment, tell me some lingo that I missed because I'll chuck it in the next one. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I put a lot of effort in with this one. This one took a very long time, but yeah, anyways, catch you later.